we're so conditioned, and it's like when we were young kids, and at least I know myself, when I felt like I did well on a test, I was so excited to get my grade back, right? But if I didn't feel like I did great, then I was like dreading it. I just wanted to like get it, move on, and that's it. And like, yet you get a test and you did well, and it's like, ooh, this is fun, let's read it over. But like, it's when you quote unquote lose, or you don't get the outcome you want, or something didn't go as planned, like that is when the magic happens.
Hey there, Adam. Today, let's talk about an often overlooked key ingredient to sustainability when it comes to health and fitness. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
I do, but I won't take the thunder away. I'll let you go into it.
Oh, thank you so much. That secret ingredient is reflection, in particular, self-reflection. And no, I'm not talking about looking in the mirror. I mean, you can if you want to to each their own. But no, seriously, in all seriousness, I think it's undervalued how important self-reflection and reflection of actions and choices taken really is. And so I kind of want to dive into this a little bit today. Do you have any thoughts at the start?
I love it. To me, this is like the sibling of pausing before you act and planning before you act. So many people are very good at thinking through their day, planning, the old if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, thinking through your obstacles, your challenges, if then scenarios, if this happens, then I'll do that. But a lot of us are not very good, or we just haven't thought about doing it to focus on the post-mortem, what happens afterward.
Right. Well, I think we're currently living in a society that really prizes action and constant action and like, don't look back, just keep going, faster, faster, right? So a couple of reasons that perhaps we don't do this and we're not really encouraged to do this, it takes slowing down. You actually have to stop and consider, just like the pause before you take an action or make a choice, you have to stop long enough to look back. And this isn't about like getting hung up, but it pays off, right? So one of the biggest reasons I think people don't do it, they don't want to take the time to do it. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, there's no doubt our society has a bias toward action. What's next? What's next? And it's interesting because one of the things I often encourage people to do is have a short-term memory, right? I think, I'm very fortunate to work with a lot of world-class athletes. And often what separates the best from the rest is their mindset. And a critical component of that mindset is having a short-term memory, having a memory like a goldfish, where if you make a mistake, you move on, you forget about it, and what's next. And this is kind of the antithesis of that, of, hey, you know what, we're actually going to take a few moments to reflect what happened, what went wrong, but also what went right.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk about reason number 2. A lot of people dodge reflection because it's messy, right? Like we got to look back and see like, ooh, how did it go? And if it didn't go so well, it's messy. That's uncomfortable. People don't want to look back and say like, ugh, that was jumbled. I really struggled with this. It was not perfect. This is like the perfectionist nightmare, right? So yeah, you look back and you got to look at what went wrong, what didn't work, but also, like you said, what did go well. Sometimes, and a lot of times, reflection yields strengths, right? That you didn't even realize you had. Do you want to crack into this a little more?
Yeah.
Because I think, we talked earlier. What is it that you wanted to point out about this?
No, I mean, I think, focusing on the positive and what went well is really important. I mean, bright spots, let's say you made it to the gym or you exercised 4 times last month and, that's great. And it's like, well, why were you able to make it 4 times? And then let's say you dig in more and it's like, well, it turns out I exercised during lunch 3 out of those 4 times. Well, that's interesting. So maybe it's, okay, how can we maybe keep your lunch time open so you can recreate more of your own success? And again, focusing on your bright spots is just as important as focusing on what went wrong. And this is also why when things don't go perfectly in quotes or things don't go as planned, as they often do, we want to know as coaches, right? The more you share with us, the more we can help you. And sure, it's wonderful to hear about all the wonderful choices and all the discomfort you embraced, but we often learn the most when things don't go as planned and things went wrong, in quotes, because that's when we can figure out what happened, come up with different ideas and solutions for next time it happens, and plan ahead. So, focus on your bright spots, focus on, what went well, but also do not be afraid to share with us what went wrong. That is where we can, that is where the magic can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, things going wrong is really frustrating. Like, we don't like messing up, we don't like not getting it right. And sometimes it feels like we're perpetually making the same mistake over and over again. So, even more so, it's important to share with your coach, if you're working with a coach, what you're bumping into, right? And that frustration, Adam, what were you talking about? That frustration is something we want to kind of get excited about, because it means what?
Well, it means we're growing. It means we're learning. And, I'm obsessed with acronyms, as you know. And, one of my favorite acronyms is TFD, tolerance for discomfort. But I also think we want to focus and practice increasing our tolerance for frustration, because that frustration is when you're learning. That is when you're growing. That is when you're evolving, right? If you know something and it's easy, there's no frustration. And that moment, that gap of not knowing what you're doing and being unsure to getting to the point where it is second nature, that gap is frustration, right? Imagine you're on one side of a lake, the other side is where you want to be. That lake is all frustration. And if you have no tolerance for frustration, then you're never going to get to where you want to be. And I think it's really important to practice increasing your tolerance for frustration.
I like it. So, improve our swimming skills.
If that's what you took out of that, then yes.
Listen, I love a good analogy.
Yes.
I love it. So, all right, there is a third reason people often avoid reflecting on past behaviors, past choices, past actions. And that's because it also requires a good dose of personal responsibility, right? When we reflect back, we have to look at, what was I in control of, right? What choices did I make? What actions did I take that affected my outcomes? And again, a lot of people, we all kind of struggle with this, right? Because then we're going, well, why am I making these choices? They're not leading me to where I want to go. But the thing is once we start taking ownership of these things, then we can go, okay, well, what else can I do to change these outcomes? And sometimes it is seeking support from a coach or a mentor or whatever the case is. So I think it's also important to acknowledge that is also a big reason people avoid looking back, because we got to own what we've done. We got to own what we're doing in order to change what we're getting. What do you think?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think, when we're kind of faced with a decision, we're kind of walking up these, steep stairs. I like to use the water slide analogy. Here's another analogy for you, right? You're out here, you
ready.
Go to a water park. There's a really fun, steep water slide, but you got to walk up a lot of stairs. And I think during the day or at the end of the day, we kind of know when we're walking up those stairs. And before we go down that slide, we have a moment or two of, am I going to go down this slide, or am I going to make a U-turn and go back down? And when you can reflect and say, you know what, today was really stressful. I had a really tough day because of this or that. This, what happened, this likely is what caused me to do this. Like, that moment of reflection is really powerful. A, of course, in the moment, but also B, when you can get out of it and, you're reflecting on the day. It's like, actually, you know what, yesterday was a really, really stressful day, or today was a really stressful day. And you can figure out what's going on. You can figure out, triggers, right? Maybe it's someone, said something to you, or maybe it's you were feeling overwhelmed with work, but understanding your triggers can help us prepare for next time. And the only way to get to that point is to look back.
Definitely. Now, I do want to say there's a lot of tools out there that help us track all these choices and behaviors, right? And I think sometimes we get caught up in the idea that this is enough in terms of, I'll just look back at my data, it'll be fine, But all the trackers, all the logging, I mean, it is great. We need that information, but it can't just be information for days and weeks and months on end without any reflection, right? And so I think what we should talk about next is, like, when do we do this? When do we reflect? Do we do it every hour? Do we do it, once a year? Well, yes. Yes is the answer. We don't want it to be overwhelming, but if you're working with us here at My Body Tutor, the great news is you're doing it on a daily basis. right? You've got a coach who's hopefully in your ear, helping you look back at the choices and the actions you're taking each and every day and helping you, understand where are we going? What consistency is showing up? Like you said, Adam, where are the bright spots and what can we replicate that helps you be successful? And what do we need to work on? And then if you're not working with a coach, I would say like a weekly rhythm of reflection is really good, because if you say you've got your Apple tracker on for all your workouts and I don't know, you're logging, calories and some calorie tracker thing, but you never look at it, right? And say you do this like for 3 or 4 months and then 3 or 4 months go by and you don't like what you've got. Well, that's 3 or 4 months you didn't bother to look at like the choices and the actions you were taking. So I just want to put that out there. Adam, what do you think about all of that?
Yeah, I mean, data alone rarely changes behavior. I mean, I know you are too, very pro coaching. I mean, this is why I believe in what we do so much. I mean, when you have a coach, it's a mirror. Someone's holding up a mirror and allowing you to reflect what's going on. You can track data all day long, but if you're not doing anything with it, and if someone's not holding up a mirror and saying, hey, how can we improve? I'm noticing this, I'm noticing that, like that's where it all happens. I personally love a daily reflection. What I did that day, what I accomplished, gratitude, like I think that's all really powerful, and it allows me to be my best and most intentional self. And, it's not about obsessing or anything like that. It's just, I want to make sure I'm living life intentionally and not just kind of drifting throughout the day.
Right. And I think that word intentional is really the crux of everything, right? Because if we are just taking actions one after the other without any reflection, eventually there's just no intention other than to just keep moving, right? And outcomes be damned. And whatever it is, I'm just going to keep going. But by inserting reflection, you get much more poignant actions afterward, right? You hone those actions, you tailor your path, you're customizing your life, and you get very intentional outcomes. So again, I contend reflection, in particular self-reflection, is a key ingredient to sustainable health and fitness. Any last thoughts, Adam?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I'll share this because it's so important, but the more you share with your coach, the better. I mean, and we're so conditioned, and it's like when we were young kids, and at least I know myself, when I felt like I did well on a test, I was so excited to get my grade back, right? But if I didn't feel like I did great, then I was like dreading it. I just wanted to like get it, move on, and that's it. And like, yet you get a test and you did well, and it's like, ooh, this is fun, let's read it over. But like, it's when you quote unquote lose, or you don't get the outcome you want, or something didn't go as planned, like that is when the magic happens. So lean into it, reflect on it, self-reflect on it, but let your coach, see that, because that is a big part of what they can help you do, is figure out what went wrong, what went right, and how you can, course correct and continue to improve and iterate.
Absolutely. All right, guys. So get to it. Insert some reflection, some self-reflection, get with your coach, get on those coaching calls. That's a great time for self-reflection and collaboration on figuring out what's going well and what isn't. And as always, drop us an email. Let us know what you find. All right. And we'll see you next time.